We got a lot of Dolphins trade rumors to get into on today's show, but we're going to talk about one specifically with Tyreek Hill. Could the Dolphins trade the star wide receiver? There's been a lot of speculation before the deadline on November 5th if the Dolphins would be willing to trade him. We're going to talk about that and others on today's show. Let's do it. Could the Dolphins trade Tyreek Hill? This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. The Dolphins are 2-4. It's been a disappointing season for the Fins. Tua is returning this upcoming week, but if Miami continues to stack losses before the deadline in a couple weeks, could they think about trading the star wide receiver? It has not been a good season for Tyreek Hill whatsoever. He's only had 24 catches, 294 yards, and 1 touchdown. Most of those all coming, by the way, in week 1, where he had 8 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown against Jacksonville. So in the 5 games coming after that, let's do the quick math. 16 catches for 164 yards and no touchdowns. That's not Tyreek Hill normal football, folks. Now, this is likely to potentially change statistically, at least for Tyreek, with Tua returning, as those two have a great rapport and chemistry. And the Dolphins' passing attack was just absolutely abysmal with Tim Boyle, Skylar Thompson, and Tyler Huntley over the past 5 games. But the contract situation is the one we probably have to note the most on if a Tyreek Hill trade could actually go down. Next season, he's getting paid $31 million. This is his cap hit. We're only talking cap hit right here. If we talk trade, it would be very complicated. I'm not going to talk about it. We're just going to do the overall cap hit. In 2026, it's 55.2. Now, I don't know if that will end up ultimately happening. That's way too big a cap hit for a wide receiver. I can imagine that being restructured, spread out into a signing bonus to other years as well. Because right now, he is an unrestricted free agent in 2027. With 3 void years in those 3 years, where he still is on the books for a 7.9 cap hit, 2020 or in 27 and 28, and then 3.1 in 2029. Before I give you my thoughts on if the Dolphins should trade Tyreek Hill and reset, let me get your thoughts down in the comment section. Should the Dolphins trade Tyreek Hill? It's today's pinned comment. If you hit with a YouTube ad break, let it play. Scroll down and answer today's pinned question. Type T for trade or type Key for Kate. I'll tell you one thing. I don't think they will, because it just makes no sense for Miami to extend him, or not extend, but give him a contract restructure, pay him all that money, and then trade him just, 3 months later? And it seems like the Dolphins also agree with me. Dianna Russini, who is an NFL insider for The Athletic, said they're not going to trade Tyreek. And it makes a lot of sense. Why would they want to do that? Now, you did give money to Jaylen Waddle, and he's your future wide receiver 1 of this franchise, and that could make Tyreek Hill expendable if you continue to have a bad season. But is the first-round pick you'd get back from Tyreek really worth losing him right now? I don't know if it is. I think I'm holding on to Tyreek for this season. If you want to revisit a Tyreek Hill trade in this upcoming offseason, fine by me, and we can have a conversation about that then. But at least during the deadline, I'm going to hold on for him. Tyreek wants to be in Miami. I think they want to keep him here. I don't think it's going to happen. But we're going to talk about 3 trades that I could see happening for the Miami Dolphins. And one of them is running back Raheem Mostert. And he's a veteran, and he's one of the rare players on this roster that I'm absolutely fine trading away. And a lot of that not has to do with Raheem himself, but it actually has to do with what the Dolphins have behind Raheem Mostert and Jaylen Wright. And it has been a down season for Mostert. He obviously missed a couple weeks with a chest injury after he suffered it in week 1 against Jacksonville, didn't play against Seattle, didn't play against the Buffalo Bills either, and it's been a down year, only playing in 3 games. Only running for 3.9 yards per carry, and that's the most concerning part to me. It's not the yards, it's not the lack of touchdowns, it's the inability for him to really stack together efficient runs. And obviously that one fumble you see on your screen as well was a heartbreaker, as he did sneaky cost the Dolphins this game against the Colts this past Sunday, because if he doesn't fumble there, up 10-3 early in the third quarter, the Colts aren't set up at the 28-yard line and able to punch it in to tie the game up at 10 after they've been unable to move the ball all day long. That fumble killed Miami, and he has not been good this season. But you know who has been good is the rookie you drafted in the 4th round of this past draft, Jaylen Wright. And by the way, you gave the Eagles a 2025 3rd-round pick to get him in a 4th round. So you clearly value Jaylen Wright very, very high and see him as a future piece of this Miami Dolphins offense. And he's shown you why you should be excited for that. He's had 34 carries this year for 172 yards. He's averaging more than 5 yards per carry. The kid has been absolutely fantastic, and he deserves more attempts. In Week 5 against New England, he ran for 86 yards on 6.6 yards per carry. He got 5 carries against the Colts and ran for 33 yards on 6.6 yards per carry. He needs to get more carries, and he actually might be your best pure running back. Watching the film, he has been able to slither through holes that I don't think Raheem Mostert and De'Von Achane have just been able to do efficiently enough through the first 6 games of the season. And he also has the possession ability to hit the hole, accelerate. He's quick, he's shifty, he's bendy. He has everything you want in a running back. I think Jaylen Wright needs to see the football field more. And if the Dolphins feel like Wright's progressing enough to where he should be the number 1 or number 2 back on this team to De'Von Achane and Raheem Mostert falls to RB3, then we can have him expendable, trade him, and then just have Jeff Wilson, who's been healthy and active the past couple weeks, be that 3rd running back and physical guy in between the tackles if you still deem you need one after trading away Raheem Mostert. And if the Dolphins do end up making some trades before the trade deadline, we'll have you covered. But we'll also have you covered on any trade rumors that pop up as well. We do daily content here as well as go live for every Dolphins football game. Hit that sub button if you want to be the most informed Dolphins fan on the planet. Another trade candidate, Emmanuel Ogbah, the edge. This one hurts a little bit because he's just been so good for Miami this season, playing in 5 games, having a good grade, having a pair of sacks, making some plays in the run game as well. He's been your most consistent edge rusher, and it's unfortunate that he missed the game against the Colts in Week 7, but either way, he's been your best edge rusher, especially since Jaelan Phillips had that injury that has put him out for the year. And with the edge room looking like this, where you've had to rely on Chop Robinson to be your number 2 guy, and he has not been good this year. He generated no pressures and 16 pass rushing snaps against the Colts this past Sunday. He's been bad in the run game as well. Chop Robinson has been a disappointment for being drafted 21st overall. And then you have Tyus Bowser, Quentin Bell, and Mohamed Kamara as your depth pieces. It's not great to move Emmanuel Ogbah. But on the reason why I have him as a trade candidate, he is on a 1-year deal. So you'd be able to cash in on his contract, get a 5th, 6th round pick potentially for the veteran. And the only reason why I could see it happening is if the Dolphins lose these next 2 games. They lose to Arizona. They lose to Buffalo. You're 2-6. You don't really need Emmanuel Ogbah when you're 2-6 because you're not probably going to rattle off 8 wins in your last 9 games to go 10-7 and make the postseason. And you still have Bradley Chubb returning on the horizon when he's coming off the PUP list. And when Bradley Chubb returns, it makes Emmanuel Ogbah expendable if you are not having a successful season. The Dolphins win against the Cardinals, I'm probably keeping Emmanuel Ogbah no matter what happens against the Buffalo Bills. But if you lose to Arizona and Buffalo and you're 2-6 at the deadline, I think you could trade Emmanuel Ogbah and cash in on his 1-year deal. All right, make sure you cash in on this Miami Dolphins quarter zip. I'm a big quarter zip guy, and I think this one looks really clean. I have it for myself. I have it at home in the charcoal version. You can also get in the orange, aqua, navy, white, old school logo, chatsports.com/DolphinsQZip. That link's in the description and comments of today's video. Wear it to dinner, wear it to work, on the golf course, out with friends. It doesn't matter. It's so versatile. I love quarter zips. Go get yours today and represent the Dolphins all the time with this Q-Zip. One more time, chatsports.com/DolphinsQuarterZip. All right, the last trade candidate that we are going to talk about is Jevon Holland. Yes, I know it is a tough one to bring up his name right now, and I don't feel good about saying him on this trade candidates video, but here's the moral of the story, folks. He is a free agent coming up this year. And if you don't want to franchise tag him, you don't feel good about him extending with you and re-signing with you in free agency, or if you just don't believe you have enough money to re-sign Jevon Holland, like Christian Wilkins and Robert Hunt. Like, here's the situation. Those two left in free agency this past year on massive $100 million contracts. Is Jevon Holland getting $100 million? Absolutely not. Safeties aren't worth that. Holland is very good, but he's not going to get paid remotely close to that. And the reason why the Dolphins didn't cash in on Wilkins or Hunt is because they were competitive and winning. Well, if the Dolphins aren't going to be competitive in making the postseason, and you don't think you have the money to re-sign Jevon Holland in the offseason, then why not trade him now to a team that might feel they need another safety? He's been one of the best safeties in the NFL since entering the league, and yes, he does have a hand injury right now, but he is going to return, and he is going to be effective. I love Jevon Holland. I think he could be one of the great pieces in this Dolphins defense and secondary for the foreseeable future if you're able to retain him. Like, I wouldn't love getting rid of him. It'd actually make me upset to get rid of Jevon Holland. But you also have to take your emotions out of the situation when you're talking about the future of this organization. And like I mentioned a couple times, if you do not feel like he is going to resign and you are not winning football games right now and you're not going to make the postseason because you lose the next two games against Arizona and Buffalo and you're 2-6 at the deadline, and a team comes calling and says, we're going to give you a fourth-round pick for Jevon Holland, well, then it might be enticing enough for Chris Grier to move on, get some draft capital that you can then use in the draft to get some more young talent on the offensive line or the defensive line or replace him in the secondary. But the reason why I'd want to keep Jevon Holland and go against that is because he's young. He's been a piece of this defense for 4 years now, and with veterans like Kendall Fuller, Jordan Poyer, and Jalen Ramsey, mostly in the secondary, it's good to have a young piece that you can build around, at least on one position in that safety room. All right, I gave you 3 Dolphins trade candidates that I think could be on the move, barring a rough couple weeks here before the deadline. Name one player the Dolphins should trade in your opinion. Drop it down in the comment section. And make sure you are subscribed. Like I said, if any moves do go down before that November 5th trade deadline, we will have you covered. And if any rumors pop up or news, we will also break it down on the channel. We'll be the #1 spot on YouTube for trade rumors before that deadline, but we're also #1 spot for normal news and being live for every single Dolphins game. Hit that sub button and join us here at Dolphins Today.